I think the first thing is just like know what your one thing is and know that controllable. Like, what is that controllable factor? What's that X factor that if you did that one thing, everything else wouldn't matter?
Hey guys, welcome to the first official episode of Incremental Improvements, the Subtleties of Success. I'm back with my co-host, Jimmy Cusimano. And today we're going to be talking about this concept called keeping the funnel full. So Jimmy, why don't you kind of start us off and kick us off on what that means to you?
Yeah, totally. And I'm, kind of thinking through the first time we decided to create this video cast, and we were thinking about, okay, what kind of community do we want to build? And really, this is for us as business owners and our colleagues and our friends and anyone listening. If you own a business, if you're an entrepreneur, we're hoping to build this community with you. And so keeping your funnel full, it really just kind of comes down to what keeps the lights on in our business. And that's our customers, right? Our clients. If we don't have clients, if we don't have customers that are either buying our product or buying our services, we don't have a business, right? That's probably very straightforward and something very obvious for everyone on the call. So in order to get to a certain level where we have enough people to serve, we've got to go through a lot of no's. We've got to, experience a lot of defeat. And so an example specifically in our business at Cusimano Financial, ultimately, we really want to get to a point where we have about 250 households where we are the center of their financial life. And what I mean by that, Greg, is if there's a major financial decision where someone is about to retire, or if there's a financial decision where someone's about to sell their business, or they're about to buy a business, or they've got to pay down their student loans, we don't care what the decision is or what the problem is. We want to be that first phone call, right? To partner with our clients through that. And so not every client views us that way, and that's okay. We can still help in different ways, but our goal is to get 250 relationships where we are their partners. And as you know, building your business, there's a certain amount of people that are going to have to say no to us before we get that yes.
Mm-hmm.
In our business, it's about a 10-to-1 ratio. So for every one new client we get, there's 9 people that either we're not the right fit for or the timing just isn't right. And that's okay, right? But now we know what our controllables are, which if we need to get to 250 into our target market, the way our numbers work out, and we'll maybe talk about this later, is we've got to get 20 introductions to that target market every single month.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we eliminate weekends, sick days, and whatnot, we average about 20 days a month. So that's one new introduction per day. And again, it's about keeping that funnel full of people that we really get jazzed up to work with.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love the clarity behind that. Makes a lot of sense.
Totally, man. How about you? What does keeping your funnels full mean to you?
Definitely a lot of the same foundation points, like, keeping the lights on, staying in business, making sure we're profitable and we're growing. But for me, I look at keeping the funnel full as a way of just controllability. You're about 10 years, 8 to 10 years ahead of me in the business. And so I definitely have a target market and a target like client that I want to have a business built around, but I'm still very much focused on just helping out a myriad of different types of people for different
Right.
situations. And so for me, it's about understanding my ratios on what type of clients we want to work with. For me, it's just, good people that care, that want to take action and plan for their future. And that falls across, business owners, professionals, sales professionals, employees, a lot of different people. But with that, I like to think of keeping the funnel full in the aspect of what can we expect coming in from a revenue standpoint per month, and understanding our ratios from that perspective. If I have, 20 people who are potentially looking to become clients for us, I could predict around, 5 of those people becoming clients for the month.
Right.
And what does that revenue look like in terms of us meeting our revenue goals for business for the year?
I like that. So you back into it where it's like, hey, here's what I need to have to keep the business going. Uh, Maybe the want to have is like right here,
Mm-hmm.
like all the things you like personally, but the need to have is like, what do you need to get the business running? Is that, if I'm hearing you right, kind of the
Yeah,
way you
pretty
think
much.
about it?
Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much. Just like what
yeah,
needs to happen to just keep the business going and continue to give me opportunities to, because in my stage too, for me to just 100% go cold turkey it is possible, but there is some short-term pain
right,
that you obviously need to weigh the pros and cons on. And so for me, I'm in this for the long term. I've been in this for 5.5 years, got another 30 years to go. So I don't need to worry about, getting there overnight. It's just about the slow climb and being consistent and things like that. So that's just
right.
kind of the space I'm operating from at the moment.
That's cool. And I think for many of the viewers out there that are listening to that, experience, and even myself, 14 years in, we're still working to a point where we need to get very clear around, okay, who is our ideal client? And so when we think through that, and for, again, anyone listening, I think the whole message there is like, if you're not growing, you're going.
Mm.
So if you're not constantly trying to grow by meeting other people, chances are your business either one won't succeed, or you'll be in a business where you're maybe kind of trying to make it work with people that aren't necessarily in your ideal customer base or client base. Um, but that's great, man. And again, ultimately, marketing is testing, and
Mhm.
these different relationships and different interactions are just giving you an idea of what you ultimately want to build. So that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right. So let's think about some examples. I know, Greg, you're a huge sports fan, as am I. And I know, being, from LA, the LA roots, we kind of had uh, you know, last year was a big year for us with the Lakers and the Dodgers. So
Mhm.
I'd love to
Mhm.
just hear, your thoughts. And when you think about keeping your funnel full, how can you relate that specifically to the Dodgers?
Yeah, so we were talking about as we were talking about keeping the funnel full before we, went on this episode. Again, kind of back to what keeping the funnel full means to me. It's just a level of controllability and
Mm,
predictability, not just for my current future or like my current situation, but also my future, and to be able to sustain success. And so I thought of the Dodgers just because I am a huge Dodgers fan. We did win the World Series finally last year, but I think it's been pretty cool because for me, being a Dodgers fan, the thing that's been the most disappointing is we have been pretty much the best team in baseball for the last 8 years in a row and finally weren't able to
crazy.
win. But you think about the players we won with this year, they're players that are, a lot of them are new. Like we didn't have, I remember um, Matt Kemp was like the best player in baseball at a point, and we let him go. And then Yasiel Puig got really popular, ended up letting him go. We had Adrian Gonzalez, who was like an all-star first baseman who really helped us
The
out with the
OG.
Red Sox.
Yep.
Yeah, and then we let him go, and then a lot of different players came up behind them, and we've never missed any of those players.
Right.
And I think this
Right.
is a testament to the Dodgers keeping their funnel full with their prospects through their farm system. They always have a great farm system, and they're willing to let people go because we have talent coming in behind them. And
Right.
it's we've only won one World Series, but we've consistently been winning. I mean, our win percentages have been around 700 over the last 8 years. So that's phenomenal, and that's just a testament to keeping the funnel full.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It wasn't the big name flashy signing. Now Mookie Betts, obviously, he's a beast. But you're right, man. Like Bellinger and Seager, like all those guys that they just developed and they just stayed with it.
Yeah, I mean, we
That's
got rid of Machado
giving you
last
options.
year, and it was like
Yeah,
he was a big name, and it
yeah.
was no big deal.
It's
So
like nope, nope. And they just pick their spots, right? Don't give him the contract, but they give Mookie the contract, right? And you think about just the attitude that Mookie has and like the work and dedication that he puts into his craft.
yeah, Mookie's
Uh,
different, man.
yeah, yeah. I think you and I think in a different world, man, we might be GMs, dude. That might be like one of our dream jobs, huh?
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Whew. That would be cool. That would be super
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, how about you? What are some examples that you see keeping the funnel full being really successful?
Yeah. I think just one comes from a couple clients that we have that own a business. It's a medical device business, smaller business that they started up about 5.5 years ago. And there's lots of large players in this space, right? The medical device industry is very competitive, especially in light of, I mean, it always has been, but even more recently as last year with COVID and the
Mhm.
demand for medical equipment. And I remember that they worked for these larger companies for, one guy worked for them for 10 years, the other worked for them for like 15. And, they were just getting tired and they were getting burnt out. And they just decided to start looking at other opportunities outside of the medical device industry.
Mm.
And so they started like talking to peers, they started talking to colleagues. And then ultimately, what ended up is they started getting connected with a silent investor that saw their vision around what they wanted to build. And they wanted to be very specific in the medical devices that they sold. And so what ended up happening was they got connected with that investor. Investor put enough capital to get their business up and going. And 5.5 years later, they are a major competitor in this space. And this is two guys with a dream to basically say, we're going to go off and do this on our own. And if they didn't have that perspective and they didn't, if they had a narrow frame and just said, hey, I'm going to just look at other companies or maybe think about a different position in my company, if they had that narrow frame and didn't open up their funnel to meeting with people outside their industry, they wouldn't have been in they wouldn't be in the position that they're in now, with this business that they can call their own and it's thriving.
That's awesome, man. I mean, I
Yeah.
love how it's the same principle applied in a different setting
Right.
leads
Right.
and leads to success. That's
Totally.
that's really cool. I think that's a really good example. Thanks for sharing that.
Totally, man.
So, Jimmy, before we get into our golden nugget and we wrap things up, what are some things that you feel like you could control as it pertains to keeping the funnel full?
Yeah, totally, Greg. So one of the things when I kicked off, or when we kicked off the call, and I talked about 250 households of people that consider us to be the center of their financial life and partnering with them, it became very clear that we had to get referred to one person per day to get that goal. And I mean, you've been around me long enough to kind of know my mind works like an engineer almost. I'm very analytical. And so I just like to break things down and keep them simple. And if something gets too complex, my mind tends to take me there. And then I get
Mm.
this whole analysis paralysis where I don't end up doing anything. So I start to think about, okay, 250 people in 10 years. And we started this vision 3 years ago. So the numbers work out where we get one person out of every 10 people we get introduced to become a client. And so if we need to bring on 24, shout out to the Mamba, RIP Kobe. If we need to get 24 new relationships every year, so 240 over 10 years, not quite 250. We're hoping there's a little bit of leeway throughout that, but that would be 20 a month.
Mhm.
So if we're working 20 days a month, that's one referral I got to get per day. So 20 referrals, we get those two new clients in that month that fit our target market. And we're going to trust the system and hope over the next 7 years we can get to that goal. 3 years in, we've looked at the data and we're pretty darn close. So we're excited about that. But it's all about putting in the work, and just the controllable for us is getting introduced to that one person every day, in our target market. So how about you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's pretty similar. Yours is more of an introduction, and I'll draw the distinction. For me, it's
Right.
actually to have a conversation with one person per day. So the distinction between, I guess, yours and mine is you're trying to get introduced to one, qualified candidate per day. For me, I'm trying to speak with a new person of interest to be a client every single day. And that's my one controllability that we're focusing
Mm,
on, is trying to have 5 new conversations with people per week and those conversations leading to interest in having another meeting and potentially being a client. So
Totally.
pretty much along the same lines, but for me, it's just having that same controllability of having a conversation per day with a prospective client.
Totally.
Mm-hmm. All right, Jimmy. Well, as we wrap up today's episode, what's the golden nugget that you hope that people can take away from this episode?
Yeah, Greg, I guess this is a little 2 for 1 because I can't pick one over the other, but and so I would, encourage the attorney that is trying to start up her own practice to really understand what client will you serve best, right? Maybe not the one that's going to make you the most amount of money, but the one that you feel that you connect with the best. And I think, at least from my perspective, is that when you operate at your best and you interact with the people that you want to interact with, you will be your best professional version. And I feel like the money's going to come with that. Mm-hmm. So just know your ratios. Like if you need that, you want to get 10 new clients in your practice for that year, what do you have to do to get there? And break it down on a daily basis. And then the second one is just like, what kind of lens are you going to look through when you're building your business or your practice? And so I got to bring it back to finance. I mean, because that's our industry. There's a author, Nick Murray, who basically is the coach's coach. He basically coaches financial advisors that coach other financial advisors. And I read something from him this morning where he was talking about, 2020, as crappy of a year as it was, and don't get me wrong, it was probably one of the worst years I've ever experienced, that many of us have ever experienced. But he talks about the optimism around the state of the economy and the industry in general. And overall, there was about $800 billion in Americans, in the U.S. population savings accounts. So if you look at everything that everyone had together in the U.S. saved, it was about $800 billion. In 2020 alone, there was $1 trillion added to that number.
Wow. So 2019, 800 billion, 2020, 1.8 trillion.
1.8 trillion.
Wow.
So in a year where we were ravaged by the coronavirus and the market hit an all-time low, yet to climb back up to an all-time high with all that uncertainty, we as a country increased our savings capacity by $1 trillion. And so when I read that, I think about opportunity, and I think about how many people we can serve that have already done the hardest part, which you and I, Greg, know is actually just saving or committing to saving, right?
Just don't spend it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, granted, we couldn't travel, we couldn't do all the things we wanted to do last year, but still, I mean, think about the opportunity there, right? Mm-hmm. To help them put money in places that are maybe more efficient or can help them get what they want to get done with those funds, right? So I think about that as an opportunity, again, for other businesses or other industries. When you think about what 2021 is presenting your way, choose the lens in which you're going to look at it through, because whether you think negatively or think positively, you're right in either scenario. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of, how you choose to view the opportunity that's going to be in front of you.
That's awesome, man. So quick summary. Know your one thing.
Right.
And choose the right lens that's going to provide fruit for your business.
Totally.
Awesome. We appreciate you guys for tapping in, and we look forward to the next episode of Incremental Success.
See you, everyone.